A new report from the State Department on North Korea says the regime is punishing its citizens who engage in religious practices. The annual report says those punishments included executions, torture, and beatings. State Department also saying up to 120,000 political prisoners were believed to be held in prison camps under horrific conditions, many of them for religious reasons. Let's bring in Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, Fox News strategic analyst. Good to see you, Colonel.
Hi, Shannon.
All right, no surprise it should be to any of us, but the extent and the brutality of what they're doing to people because of their faith, it seems to line up with the rest of the way this dictator operates.
Well, indeed it does. And I think many Americans don't really understand how richly rooted Christianity is in Korea, both Protestantism and Catholicism. It's thriving in the South. In the North, the government has tried hard for decades to suppress it. But faith is powerful. A religious faith can be the greatest tool, the most rigorous, robust tool against totalitarian regimes, secular or religious for that matter. And so they're definitely trying to tamp down or even exterminate Christians. But it even goes beyond Korea, that report issued by the State Department. We're seeing really a new age of Christian martyrdom around the world: Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Pakistan, China. And in terms of sheer numbers, the great age of Christian martyrs isn't 2,000 years ago or 1,800 years ago or 500 years ago with the Oxford martyrs. It's here and now. It's today, and it's been going on for a century, beginning with the Armenian genocide. Then, of course, we saw the Holocaust, an attempt to exterminate Jewish people. And why? Because dictators, authoritarian figures, fanatics understand that religion has incredible staying power. And I always, here in Washington, Shannon, you know this city very well, people are very uncomfortable talking about religion or about whether it's Islam or anything else. I point out to people that the 5 great religions of the world today, Hinduism's so old, it's survived so long, we don't know when it started. Judaism, as we know it, about 3,000 years old. Buddhism, Christianity, 2,000 years old. Islam, almost 1,400 years old. Think of the entire civilizations that have risen and fallen across the centuries, and the religions are still there. And so dictators like Kim Jong-un and others see religion as a primary threat to their authority and regime.
Do you think things have cooled off a bit as it appears on the surface in North Korea? The president tweeting this: Kim Jong-un of North Korea made a very wise and well-reasoned decision. The alternative would have been both catastrophic and unacceptable, referencing what appears to be him backing off the threat to basically unleash a ring of fire on Guam.
Well, certainly for now, we've got an intermission, an interlude between the acts. And that's a good thing, because anything that cools down the soaring, searing tensions is certainly welcome. But we're a long way from the end of this play. And China, again, is as always, is playing two sides of this. They're sort of feigning cooperation with us. But the only reason China is even appearing to crack down on North Korea and trade isn't because it fears North Korea, it sees North Korea as an ally, but rather because President Trump did a very good thing in signing a memorandum authorizing the investigation into Chinese theft of U.S. intellectual property. That scares the Chinese, because they have made hundreds of billions of dollars, stolen hundreds of billions of dollars, if not more, in U.S. intellectual property. That's how they boosted their economy to the point where it is so competitive today. So it's a complicated world, as we know, but there will always be martyrs for their faith, and there will always be dictators, whether in Beijing or Pyongyang, that our country has to deal with.
Yeah, and to another hotspot over in Iran, where they are talking about walking away from the Iran nuclear deal. The president there, Hassan Rouhani, saying this: the new U.S. officials should know that the failed experience of sanctions and coercion compelled by their previous governments to eventually come to the negotiating table. If they want to try those experiences again, Iran will definitely revert to a far more advanced situation than it had before the negotiations, not in a matter of weeks or months, but in a matter of days or hours. Colonel, saying they can ramp their nuclear program up to far beyond what we thought it was within hours?
Well, they're starting to sound like North Koreans. But certainly, they can ramp their program up. I'm not sure what's within hours. But because the nuclear deal Obama and Kerry struck with Iran was so full of holes and so weak, and especially weak on inspections. That said, the Iranian threat, I mean, I love it. It's like, boy, if you don't do what I want, I'm not going to eat this piece of chocolate cake. Well, if the Iranians walk away from the deal, they've got the black hat on in the eyes of the world. If we were to walk away, then we'd have the black hat on. So the Iranians are frustrated that the Trump administration has imposed, and Congress has imposed further sanctions on them on their missile program, not on the nuke program, because the Iranian economy is hurting. They want more money for their military, for the Revolutionary Guards, and they're very, very frustrated because they feel like they thought they had us conned with the Kerry-Obama deal, and now they're finding out they don't. But that said, the Iranian parliament still, they're willing to cut back on popular expenditures in order to fund terrorism abroad. They just allocated another $800 million for the Quds Force, that's the shock troops of the Revolutionary Guards active in Iraq and Syria. They've allocated more funds for their missile program, their ICBM program. So I think, you know, in this troubled world, we may wind up with triggers pulled between us and Iran before we do with North Korea.
Let's hope not in either case. Colonel Peters, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Shannon.